Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Jouar, and today is, well, depends where you are, but today is Wednesday, November 6th for me, and Richard Lai, my guest. It's November 7th, Thursday.
7th.
Hi, Richard.
Hello, Miriam. Good to see you.
How are you?
I'm okay. Still alive, a little, the news from last night, my time was...
Yes. It's been a rough day for us here in North America. I am currently in Vancouver at my second home, but I'll be in San Francisco tomorrow. Yes, I hope everybody's okay out there, and as okay as we can be right now. This is episode 400, and this matters because you, Richard, have been almost on every 100th episode. So you were on episode 2. Technically, there's not really an episode 1. The folks that own the World Podcast Network did a kind of intro episode with me, and then you were essentially my first guest on episode 2. Yes. And then you were, for some reason, you didn't get you for 100, but I got you for 101, which I think is kind of actually fitting because 101, has that significance. And then you've been on 200, 300, and now 400. And then somehow you ended up on 66 as well, which is interesting.
Yeah,
so,
something interesting happened then, but yeah.
Yeah, welcome
congratulations, 400, that's a huge milestone. And you've kept going with this podcasting, and now it seems to be making it's a trend. I think it's still a growing trend, would you say?
I think it's interesting. Yeah, let's talk about it a bit because I don't think the audience really knows the history. I started podcasting when I was at Engadget, when we worked together at Engadget. I'm a natural talker, so it was like, okay, let's do. And at the time, there was the Engadget podcast, and because I was senior mobile editor, and there used to be an Engadget mobile domain, yes. I was kind of like owning that a bit. And so They said, hey, do you want to do your own podcast? And I said, sure. But at the time, I kind of inherited it from the previous folks, right? Chris Ziegler. And, and then, Zach and I did it for a while. Then Brad and I did it for a while. And we actually broadcasted live. There was no video, but it was audio and it was live and recorded. And, we had, thankfully, somebody to help us edit, which was Trent. Remember Trent? Yeah,
good old Trent.
And Trent is gone on to do wonderful things in his life. He worked for Google for a while, for their events team. He's in Los Angeles. Thank you, Trent, if you're listening, for all the editing work you did. Now that me and Theo, my producer, we edit the podcast, I know how much work it is. Every week, I spend about 10 hours of my time editing, or Theo does, or we split it, to edit both the audio and the video versions of the podcast, because there is a video version for the Patreons. If you are on Patreon, and if you're not, stay tuned. I'll tell you how to get on. It's patreon.com/TNKGRL. But anyway, so 7 years ago, I, at the time, was kind of decided I want to do my own thing. At Engadget, I left Engadget in 2013. And so obviously I stopped doing the podcast. And then I worked kind of the other side of the world, on the PR side for a bit with Pebble. But I kind of did a very brief video only podcast. I don't know if you ever on that one. It was kind of monthly, and it's on YouTube. You can find it on my channel, mobiletechpodcast.com. And I interviewed a few people. I think I remember Joshua Vergara was on, a few other folks. And that was my beginning of kind of getting back into it. And I thought a video version monthly would be good, but I somehow couldn't kind of like maintain it. And then I was approached by Paul Spain, who's the owner of World Podcasts. And he said, hey, listen, we'd love to host your podcast. And I'd be like, oh, all right. So we signed a contract. So that meant I had obligations to do a weekly show, which really got me going because my contract is long expired in the sense that, I have no more obligations.
Right.
But they kept me in the rhythm because it was a 2-year contract. And for the first 2 years of these 7 years, I never actually missed a week. There's been multiple episodes some weeks, but I have basically never missed a week. Rain or shine,
Well done.
Holidays or not, travel or not. So that's been the plan. And I'm hoping to do this for as many more years and have you on 500, 600, 700. So yeah, that's kind of the story for those of you who didn't know.
No, respect for keeping it going for this long and for the consistency. It's not everyone can maintain that, and you do get days off, sick leave or whatever, but you managed to keep it up. So that's amazing.
Thank you.
Well done.
It's a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
The challenge is always to find someone in advance, schedule them, and then, find some good topics. And then, of course, the editing part. But also what's not too easy is, when you're traveling, there's moving parts, time zones. That becomes, and that's why I've been kind of toying with the idea of doing a live version. But live means you need to do it at a specific time. Yes. I'm finally at a place now where I always kind of like come out with the video version comes out in advance for the Patreons, and it comes out usually like on Saturdays sometimes maybe early morning Sundays. And then I publish later on Sunday, usually afternoon, which is my time, mostly Pacific time. So it's like for you, it would be like Monday. And for people in North America, it might be in the evening if you're East Coast, and Europe, you'll probably get on Monday morning. So that actually took a while to kind of like get the discipline of not just, recording it every week, but publishing it roughly within like a 4 or 5 hour window every week, And
you reckon that's the best time to publish
honestly,
podcast?
It kind of just happened. I didn't try to find the best time. There is certainly a variety of podcasts coming out, variety of times, and I'm not really like figuring out what the best is. It seems like my audience is pretty happy, so I'll just stick with it. Basically.
Nice. That's all that matters. Yes.
Yeah, and so that's where we're at. And I've kind of expanded the topics a little bit. Like now there's, of course, all the mobile stuff as usual, the phones, the earbuds, all the personal audio, headphones, smartwatches. So I've added cars and car tech and mostly EV because I do a bit of that for Tech Radar. And other publications. This kind of all happened during COVID, where the folks at Tech Radar approached me and said, "Hey, would you write like a weekly column or bi-weekly or monthly or something?" And I said, "Sure." Right now we're kind of more or less monthly, maybe sometimes bi-weekly. But, that also worked out pretty well because, as you know, when Tim Stevens was our editor-in-chief, he is also a car person like me. So we kind of looked at each other one day, virtually speaking, in the chat room and said, why don't we do some car stuff? And then we're both like, we don't have time for that. And then we're like, well, we'll just make time for it. And you know how it is. And so Tim went on to become a car journalist for quite a while. He was at CNET, and, now he's freelancing and doing incredible work.
Yeah,
Tim
he
Stevens,
does that.
You should check him out.
Oh, yeah. And he does that for Engadget every now and then as well.
Yeah. And then, others, The Verge and the Car Pubs and the TechCrunch as well. I've seen articles there. Some lifestyle. He's done some design magazines as well. It's some printed stuff too. Wow. No, he's very prolific.
Nice. I do miss him. Yeah.
What about you, Richard? What have you been up to? Because you were at Engadget for a long time, but that ended recently.
So for those who don't know, I left Engadget at the end of February because it is what it is. Half the team had to go. So that was like 10 people, I think, around. That's my guess anyway. And I took a little break because why not? And I've since been picking up various freelance projects. So I still do some freelancing video production / writing for Hong Kong-based website called radii.co. So it's radii.co. So nice. It's more about the lifestyle, bit of culture, a bit of food, and underground music from the China and Asia regions.
Awesome.
And it's targeting the slightly younger audience, the hipsters, so to speak, English-speaking hipsters from outside this part of the world, or maybe in Southeast Asia. So it's more about like showing off what's actually cool and what's happening on our side of the world. So they asked me to help boost their tech related content. And I've helped them create a new series where we feature startups and we do interviews with their founders. And so far, so good. Yeah, I keep doing that. I do a bit of PR work as well these days, actually.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's a bit of everything. And I mean, I didn't think I would want to rejoin the tech media world, so to speak. But never say never, really.
I mean, yeah, it's like I do consulting as well. I work with companies still, like startups and big companies, helping them with their kind of go to market, doing product validation, telling them, hey, this is not big, you shouldn't launch it. These are the reasons why. Or, hey, you're ready to go, and here are some of the things you should put on a pedestal when you launch this product. A lot of companies, big and small, are kind of very much tunnel visioning about what they're coming out with, and they're not always quite aware of the kind of where the industry is at. And so that helps. If you're listening and you want to hire me for that, I will be happy to help you. My specialty is obviously consumer electronics and related products.
I am hoping by the time this podcast episode comes out, I'm hoping my Substack will be ready for a full launch.
Yes.
So
we'll link to all your stuff at the end. I'll get you to recap everything because I want it all in one convenient place.
Thank you.
But yeah, folks, Richard and I worked together for many years. You ran Engadget Chinese for a long time.
Right.
And is that still going on, or did that disappear as well?
It's disappeared at the end of June or June last year. And then so there was only one version of Engadget left, which was the main site.
Got it.
Engadget Chinese was the last remaining
of
international
the independent
version.
Separate sites.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
So it is a bit sad, but I'm just grateful that my team got transferred to Yahoo News, so they kind of run Yahoo.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're okay. They're okay. Yeah. So, but funny enough, it was me who had to leave.
Jeez.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is life, I guess, and I had been wondering whether I should leave this comfort zone after like 14 plus years. That was still my first job.
What people don't know is that you and I interacted a lot at Engadget because you at the time lived in London in the UK.
Right at the beginning, for the first year and a half, yes.
And then even after that, somehow our time zones kind of overlapped, where we ended up talking to each other in chat more than I'd sometimes talked with my team, my US team on the East Coast. And I think that started because of the UK stuff. And then as you went back to Hong Kong, yeah. And that's also why this is probably one of the first podcasts I'm recording for those watching on video in Vancouver in the dark. Because I think I've done many in the dark podcasts in San Francisco, but after 2 years of part-time in Vancouver, I don't think I've ever done a night one. That's why time zones, because Richard's a midday the next day here, and I'm kind of evening Pacific time. So yeah, one of the things I really looked forward to the most, other than our chatting for work, was you and I would somehow always end up at some kind of Asia trade show. Like Computex, or I don't know did we ever do CEATEC together? I don't know. But of course, then there was CES as well. Right. You somehow always ended up there. NWC from time to time, and stuff like that. So that was always fun.
I only did NWC twice. If you don't, if you're only counting Barcelona version. I've since been going to the Shanghai version as well.
Of course. Yeah, and then there's an Las Vegas one. And that one is very, very like carrier partner business orientated. So I don't do it anymore. It used to be called CTIA before back in the day. It kind of got absorbed by Remember CTIA was kind of like the US centric MWC for a long time, and they were separate things. And then as 3GSM got bigger, GSMA got bigger, it got kind of merged, and it turned into a business show, which is interesting. But back when I started at Engadget, CTIA was actually very, very important.
Yes.
And I used to go there with like Chris Ziegler and a bunch of other people. Used to be generally in Florida, in Orlando, or in New Orleans. They did it in New Orleans. I think the last time I went, this is going to date us. The last time I went was when Brad was still very early on and was my right-hand person, Brad Mullen.
Yes.
And they were just launching the HTC, what
Evo.
was it? Yeah, but not the first one. It was like the Evo 4G, I want to say. The first 4G
well, 4G,
one.
I guess, right? Was it like a WiMAX or something?
No, it was the first LT Evo. Oh, 4G LT, that's what it was. Because there was already a WiMAX version. This is when Sprint finally went over to LT. That really dates me. So there you go.
Good old HTC.
We miss it. I miss it so much. But hey, you go to Taiwan kind of regularly, like you go to Japan regularly. It's not too far for you.
Yeah.
So how popular is HTC? Because they still make phones for the Taiwanese market that we kind of cover sometimes, because I see it pop up on GSM Arena and stuff. But have you played with them? Are they popular?
I still see some HTC presence whenever I go to, say, Taipei, but it's clearly not not as big of a deal as it was these days. So they only have like literally one model now, and under the it's branded under the U series.
That's U series, yeah.
And they don't use the flagship processor for obvious reasons.
No, they're like mid-range-ish, right? But they're not too bad. Like the specs always look okay to me.
Well, it's like from a design standpoint, it doesn't stand out.
They're ODM designs, right? They're not like
they feel like ODM. Yeah. So, it's hard for me to say what's so special. But it just feels like, I hate to say it because, you and I, we go way back when it comes to HTC, and I don't know why they still keep doing it. To be honest, it feels like they're clinging on to this one model just to say they're still a mobile company when their main business is VR.
Business VR too. Like I don't even think they're that popular in consumer VR anymore.
Yeah.
What other companies have we come and gone?
Well, Ace. Well, I mean. Oh, actually, by comparison, maybe I see a bit more Asus over there actually these days.
Well, that makes sense, but they're still pretty. I mean, they still sell their phone here in the US.
Right.
Both the ROG phones and the Zen phones.
Yes.
So I think they're not a big player by any means, like Sony, right? They're still making phones, although they left the U.S. market. We never got the latest Xperia 1 here. I mean, it exists. We know it exists, but we used to get review units, and no.
So Sony is also still popular in Taiwan. I think the cultural similarities, the common ground, so to speak, between Taiwan and Japan helps a lot. And so you naturally have a lot of fans who really like the Japanese design from Sony.
I mean, I like it too, to be frank. I've always got a soft spot for Sony because I'm older, and I remember all this technology from Sony in the 90s and the 80s that really was always in my head. And like, it was like, from, whether it be PlayStation, and I'm biased again because I worked at Sony for PlayStation, but whether it's Sony PlayStation, whether it's the stereo equipment, the video equipment, TV equipment, or even like the mini disc, because I use mini disc, or if it's Walkman or Discman. I had a number of different Sony and Aiwa cassette players back in the day, and then Discman from like Panasonic and Techniques and whatever, Matsushita, right? And of course Sony, and then mini disc. It was always either Sharp or Sony for me. So I never was Panasonic? Exclusive. No, interestingly, for mini disc, I think I would stick, like the Sharp units I got were from Japan. They were imports, whereas the Sony ones were sold in the 90s. At the time I lived in Canada, so they were sold in Canada. But yeah, I don't know. I think I got kind of obsessed with Sharp for some reason. And whereas with the Discman, I kind of always used to really enjoy the Techniques, Panasonic, Matsushita ones. And then with tape, again, Sony was always there, but I was definitely my number 2 choice, or sometimes number 1, depending. I changed Walkmans regularly, and it was
Wow.
high school for me, right? So I changed, and Discman was college. So, and mini disc was the beginning of my game career, I guess. Well,
Mm.
it was delayed. Like we got mini disc in I think a year or two after Japan, so we didn't get it right
Ah, no
away.
wonder. I was going to say,
Yeah,
that
like I
your
think mini
timeline.
disc was still
Mm.
like even as the iPod was coming into play, it was never big in North America, but there was definitely like into 2005s and so there was still some mini disc activity, even though the iPhone was coming out 2 years later, right?
Yeah. I
Kind of
miss the
crazy to
days.
think about that.
Did you ever use those tiny MP3 players that are basically just USB dongles?
Yeah, oh
And
yeah, oh yeah. I had like those they became a dime a dozen at one point. I remember
mm,
like picking one up because I forgot mine or something. I picking up one up for 20 or 30 like euros at an airport somewhere in Europe, like some Chinese no-name
yeah,
brand, kind of like nowadays you can go to like Amazon or, like any of these marketplaces that sell online that sell
mm,
stuff like Timu or whatever, right? And
Timu.
yeah, Timu, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a bunch, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But I kind of, this is kind of what I love about tech. When tech becomes so prevalent, so ubiquitous, so, generic that like, and that's why I love these janky, weird phones,
Yeah.
like the Yuli phones or the black views and stuff. I mean, they're
Oh
not
yeah. Yeah.
they're getting more brandy now. But there was
Yes.
a time when those phones were kind of like, oh, you want some magic mystery phone with a massively weird battery and
Yeah.
like some kind of like, kind of like thermal camera or like some kind of weird laser tape measure
Right.
built in.
Yeah.
Those are the people you should talk to. Yeah, like, like Unihertz or whatever
Yeah.
they used to
Unihertz.
do,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Tiny
Like
45
that was their
GHz.
thing, the
Yeah.
jelly bean, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But
They're still around. Yeah.
I kind of love that. I love the janky phones. I love the weird phones. Like remember a few years ago, you probably didn't go to that MWC, but they launched that Energizer phone that was like an inch thick. It was all battery.
They're at every single CES and some of the trade shows in Hong Kong too. I see them
Exactly.
all the time, but they are so
Exactly.
janky. I would never even use one, let alone
So,
buying.
so I'm loving how we're transitioning away from my history or your history, and now we're talking about phones, and we're talking
Yes.
about Asia, and actually, this is good to have you on because, obviously, me, my audience is very international, and I do not stick to the U.S. market in my podcast, right?
Good.
It's like I try to be as global as I can, but
Good.
because I don't have, unlike you and Ben Sin, I'm not on the ground in Hong Kong. I'm not there to see the stuff.
Well, you should come
And
over.
so I should, but I'd love to get your thoughts on in the last couple of years, how are things, especially with, the Chinese market and Hong Kong kind of evolving, like how's it looking like in Hong Kong? What are you seeing as trends? What are you seeing that's not too hot anymore in terms of phones? When you go to, your favorite importer, you should, by the way, pitch them at some point because I'm sure.
Yes.
Trinity Electronics.
Yes, I'm actually going to have dinner with the boss sometime next week. Going to catch up. I think he's currently on holiday, on vacation in Japan, so he's having a good time. But yeah, we're very good friends, obviously, and likewise with. I should see. Ben is going to be in town middle of this month as well. But
There you go.
I'll see if we can coincide it. But yeah, he did say he wants to catch up. So yeah, Trinity Electronics and along with many other of these shops, they specialize in importing phones from, say, mainland China or a bit of Japan, a bit of Korea sometimes, because like sometimes the Korean editions of like Samsungs are more special.
The special
Olympics.
edition of the Z Fold 6 that just came out, right? Like,
right. Yeah,
that's a good example. It's only sold in Korea.
Right.
So,
yeah. And then, so that's always going to be a strong market in Hong Kong, relatively speaking, because I think Hong Kong electronic consumers, the Hong Kong consumers in general, they like changing phones every now and then. So I'm talking about the ones that don't use the iPhone and Samsungs. iPhone Apple and
Samsung
Samsung.
even popular in Hong Kong?
Yeah. Especially the Flip series. So
all right, we're going to talk about that actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's still doing quite well. In terms of the big foldables, you get I see more Chinese offerings. People tend to use the Honors because Honor is officially available.
The V3 is so
exactly,
great. I'll have one. It's an incredible piece of engineering.
And there's a lot of a fair bit of Huawei as well, especially when you get the mainland Chinese tourist. And then you've got the usual the Xiaomi's, the Vivos, occasionally Oppo / OnePlus in terms of the big foldables. But
that's not so big in Hong Kong. It's not as big as Vivo.
It's I would say half.
Okay, interesting.
I'd say for based on what my observation anyway.
Right.
There's no official figure because it's hard to track these. I can ask. I should ask my friend.
Yeah, I'm just curious
Trinity.
because here in the West, in terms of our PR relationships, obviously OnePlus is a given, but we get a lot more Oppo than we get Vivo. I'm getting almost for a while I was getting every Reno, and you know how many there are. It was I had to say stop. I can't handle the Renos anymore.
Yeah, but they're good.
They're great. But now every major Find series phone, we get a review unit sent, even though here where I live, even in Canada, you can't buy them. They're not officially sold. So, but Vivo is a little harder to get our hands on. So I always get a feeling that Vivo is less popular, but it'd be interesting to find out.
It's Vivo is obviously one of the big brands in China. So if you go to China, and depending on which regions you go to, you may see more Vivo, not necessarily flagships, but they do very well in mid-range as well, because that's always been their staple. Likewise with Oppo. So again, I think we're going to talk about that in a moment. And then they also have Realme, their sister brand,
right?
And, which we can talk about in a second.
For the Patreons.
Oh, look at that!
I know. I already showed it last week, but now I've played with it, so I've got some opinions. Also, the embargo is lifted, so I can actually talk about it.
Yes,
you got the box. Hey, turn the box around for a second. Does yours say Snapdragon 8 Gen 4?
Yes,
mine
I'll try
does.
And hide the label. Why? It should say it. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, but it's not. It's 8 Elite, but it says 8 Gen 4.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yes.
That's hilarious,
isn't it?
Oh, this is wow. I kind of don't want to open this now. It's a very, very rare edition.
It's very rare. So they're aware of that, and the retail box will not have that. But it's a good souvenir to have. Yes.
But I received mine late, you know that.
Yes, clearly.
Well, because given my current status, it's understandable. But I still keep in touch with them. They sent me the review guide, and then I was like, "Are you guys supposed to send me a unit as well?" And they're like, "Oh, sorry about that."
Oh, yeah.
So I got the review guide before I got this.
Yeah. So I got this I've been here in Vancouver for a week, and I got it just before coming from San Francisco. I arrived in San Francisco the day before. So I did a quick unboxing video, and I left the box in at San Francisco. So then when the podcast recorded last week, I didn't have the box to show. So I'm so glad you have the box.
Yes. So
because look at that. Snapdragon 8 Gen 4. That they did. So I think what we've concluded here is that Qualcomm must have come up with the 8 Elite name very last minute in terms of marketing.
Which is a good move, I think.
Yeah, it matches the X Elite. I think it's smart. I mean, it's a little annoying that they keep changing the nomenclature. I wish they could just stick with something.
They've changed it so many times, though. The Snapdragon 888. Oh, that was so Chinese. So Chinese. It was clearly, I bet you, it was suggested by some Chinese brand's boss. Yeah. I can guarantee
I can see that too. Yeah,
but
totally.
8 Elite, it's good in the sense that it emphasizes the change in the CPU. But I'm sure you've covered that already.
Yeah, we did cover Qualcomm extensively, and I also had Finn Barmonian of MediaTek on the show 2-3 shows ago, where we did a deep dive for 15-20 minutes on everything Dimensity 9400.
Nice.
But yeah, so you spoke to us about Huawei just now, and I'm, one of the kind of forbidden fruits, as it were, for us, as I've actually seen it briefly in person in Hawaii. at the Qualcomm Summit, ironically. One of the tech reporters from Asia had one. So I asked if I could play with it, but
Yeah.
it was literally 30 seconds. I think you spent more time with it at Trinity, or maybe you even had one for a few days.
It was definitely at Trinity, and
Okay.
Simon, the boss, he kindly let me play with it for a bit at the shop. Though I didn't dare to go out. You know what? I actually play with it with Vlad Savov, my good friend.
Oh, wonderful. There you go. We mentioned him earlier. He was one of my co-hosts on the podcast at Engadget. Yep.
Yeah. So he's also based in Hong Kong. He's with Bloomberg these days. So I said to him, hey, do you want to come check out the Mate XT, the trifold phone? And he came along, and he actually held the camera for me while I did my little stand-up there. It was just for giggles, really. But so you got to try the mechanism, right? The whole
I got to feel it, but I didn't actually get to play with it long enough to really form a good opinion. I mean, it's an incredible, just like the Magic V3 is an incredible piece of engineering because it's so thin. This is the same. It's just blew my mind, It's like I felt like I was touching a piece of sci-fi from like a movie prop or something. It didn't feel real to me, but it was because the screen was doing stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just like, Huawei still has it, man. They still have it. It's just incredible to me. So what about your impression?
Yeah, so first of all, I should brag a bit. I knew they were working on something like this last year. And I'm pretty sure Honor is going to do something like that.
For sure. I mean, as an aside, quick tangent, it's pretty clear to me that there is still something going on between Huawei and Honor. I'm sorry, but
yes and no. No, because
come on, look at the camera pod on the V3 versus the Huawei Mate XT.
But there's a very good reason for that, because the CTO of Honor, if I remember correctly, he used to be the head of camera tech at Huawei. So it's only natural that they have a lot of similarities. And obviously a whole bunch of ex-Huawei people went over to Honor's side.
I get it. I feel like they're trying to downplay it, but I feel like there's a little more going on there in terms of sharing parts even, potentially. Like some displays look the same to me.
Well, all displays look the same. It's more about the supply
Samsung,
chain.
LG, or BOE, right? Yeah, basically.
Right, yeah. So it's more about, they're obviously still buddies with each other, but in terms of business, in terms of opening offices, they are quite siloed to the point where if Huawei opens a new office next door, the Honor folks probably wouldn't be aware of that until a few weeks later. When
of course, I know there's still a lot of separation.
Yeah, but what was I going to say? So I knew something like that was coming soon because I was visiting the production line at Honor. And I think the funny thing is because I'm buying, I speak Chinese as well. So when they were when the tour guide, so to speak, was explaining that they are also working on the display tech that can let you flex both inwards and outwards, then the PR girl was like, "Hey, you can't say that." But I heard in Chinese already, so I couldn't stop laughing. And then the PR girl, she's quite friendly, so she was giving me this little friendly slap on my on my shoulder. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, so now that the Huawei Mate XT is out, I'm sure they don't mind me saying, look, this technology clearly exists, and it's clearly something that I'm sure not just Honor, but the various other Chinese brands are working on.
Oh, yeah. Techno's already announced one, I believe. Or
that was concept, right? Did they show
they didn't ship it, no.
And of course, what was it? TCL? They had been teasing something.
Oh my God, years ago. Even Samsung showed one not that recently, 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
But I think, Huawei was the first to say, here it is, it works, it's real.
Yeah.
And so what I loved about it was how smooth the mechanism felt. And
sturdy.
I was actually impressed, especially the part that's outer fold, how I thought there'd be more of a bump or something. Like the inner fold is very much what you'd expect from the most advanced, modern, folding phones.
Yeah,
They're getting smaller. There's less of a ridge now. If you look at the V3 or even my Pixel Fold, like my second gen one, the Pixel 9 Pro Fold that I have in my pocket. But I think, or the OnePlus Open that you have on your desk.
Right, or
which,
Xiaomi.
by the way, I love that phone. So good.
I love it too.
But I think that the outer fold, I was expecting that could be messy, but it was actually really well. It's really well done,
right? Yeah, and you have to consider the fact that there's so much science going on in terms of on the material level, like the external part and the inward folding parts. It's all happening on that one same piece of flexible display.
It's one entire display.
Yeah, but you're toying with tension. You're toying with pressure. I'm not exactly sure what the actual technical terms are, but like all this folding in different directions, they have to do a lot of stress tests to ensure that this tech actually works. So,
and a lot of it has to do with the hinge designs too, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
but
Huawei's already done outside folding phones. So has Honor.
From the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, from day one. So they have a lot of experience with this. And I think that's why it paid off. And yeah, I was very impressed. It really felt like a prop out of Westworld or something. I was just like...
Yeah, it's so light.
Wow.
It's so thin. Crazy.
Like when you put it all together, it is thicker than a regular phone, but not by much, which is incredible, really.
Yeah, it feels like, oh my God. That's like e-readers, It's so light and thin. It feels like an e-reader, but with like a proper display, and it's foldable.
It has a decent camera system and plenty of battery life, and the rest of the specs are really solid. Of course, it's got like some kind of Kirin processor that is, I don't know which one it is now, but it's obviously an evolution of what we saw on the Mate 60 last year, which caused a lot of
yes. Oh, wow.
So what's funny? Somebody brought the Mate 60 Pro last year to the Qualcomm Summit last year.
Oh.
And so in the same sense as I got to see the Mate XT this year.
Yeah.
But last year was a different person. And, we all like grabbed it and ran benchmarks because, it's like, we can't get this, right? Like, we're like, what is, this is just after the chip had been kind of revealed, So there's a lot of interest amongst Western media, like, what is this like? And what a beautiful phone. Like I took some photos with it and I was like, they still have the cameras. They still know how to do the cameras like amazingly well at Huawei. So good. I have to say, I still have a P40 Pro Plus because that's still one of the best camera phones ever made.
Yeah. I mean, it's all subjective. Like with Huawei, likewise with Vivo and the early days of Samsung, I personally prefer more natural reproduction.
I get it.
But of course, there are times when, especially when it comes to food or nighttime, you want to boost the saturation up to almost max.
I just appreciate the effort put into the hardware and the software. And the synergy between the two on the camera side, right? And then the Leica back in the day, and now it's not there anymore. But
it's on Xiaomi now.
Xiaomi, right? I've got a 14 Ultra,
nice.
And I have to say, it's like last year. So I don't know if you know this. I think the audience knows, but last year, Richard, last year in February this year, just before the 14 Ultra was announced, I already had the Oppo Find X7 Ultra, right? As the one that you have on your desk, yes.
Oh yes,
you have this one. I have the one that's white. Do I have the blue one or the white one? I have either the blue or the white. Anyway, I took it to Antarctica. Theo and I went on an Antarctica cruise.
Oh wow!
Yes, and I took a lot of my photos with it. But I also compared it in Antarctica with the S24 Ultra, the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the Pixel 8 Pro, and I wrote a story for Forbes, if you go and find it, comparing my experience. And then I wrote a story for Elena at Geekspin about like the camera experience on the Ultra, the Find X7 Ultra. One of my favorite phones. But then the Xiaomi 14 Ultra came out, and I have to say, I think I like the Xiaomi better.
compared
there
to
is something about that variable aperture that
Mhm.
just gives you so much control. And don't get me wrong, because I think they're so close. And in some ways, I think that I kind of prefer the telephoto on the I prefer telephoto on the Oppo. I prefer portraits and main sensor experience on the Xiaomi. But it's so close. And like these are like the camera kit for the Xiaomi makes
Yes.
it really
Oh,
makes it, right? Like
yeah.
I actually bought a polarizing filter to mount on, so that, because I take a lot of photos of cars.
Did the kit
And
not
one of
come
the
with
things
one?
is polarizing removes a lot of the reflections.
Yes,
So
that's right.
depends how you can adjust it too. Like you can dial in the amount of, by rotating the polarizer, because polarizers are orientated. So if you
Right.
rotate it, you're changing, and you can literally see in the screen, like the reflections go away and then the reflections come back, and you kind of dial in how much reflection you want. It's really great. And then you can put an ND filter, because it's, it's a standard, whatever, like 8 centimeter filter mount.
Mm-hmm. I thought the photography kit came with a filter, like some sort of filter.
It does not. It comes with an adapter ring for any kind of standard filter.
Right, and the grip.
So it has these 2 bezel rings that look pretty, and then it has like an orange and a silver, and then it has the adapter ring, which then you can mount another thing on it. But then the grip, with the extra battery and everything is completely programmable. Every button, every rocker, everything.
So good.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm with you. You and I are on the same page, exactly the same page in terms of our preferences when it comes to Oppo versus Xiaomi. I love the telephoto, the periscopic telephoto cameras on my Oppo, and
so it's interesting, by the way, that the last year in BBK land, not Vivo, but like Oppo, Realme, and OnePlus land, there was, on flagships, there was a 3x periscope telephoto, right? We have it on the Open, you have it on the OnePlus 12, you have it on the Realme GT5 Pro last year. They were all very identical, very similar, slight different sensors, but essentially the same lens. And of course, the one telephoto on the Find X7 Ultra was also a 3x, and was that one. But this year, that has been replaced on all these phones. The upcoming 13, based on the specs we saw from China, the upcoming X8, the upcoming X8 Pro from Oppo, and this Realme here as well. They've replaced it with a tetraprism, basically a dual prism 3x telephoto. It's very similar to what is in the iPhone 16 and 15 Pro Max from last year. And so it's takes up less space inside the phone, but it still gives you like a very fast lens, f/4 2.6. And I've compared the specs, and they're all pretty much the same. So so that's actually very interesting to me, because it means that they're kind of across the board in Oppo, OnePlus, and Realme land using the same lens for that 3x telephoto on their high-end flagships. I have the Find X8 and Find X8 Pro here. I cannot show them to you, and I cannot talk about them, but just be aware that they are around and they're coming. And I'm excited about them, but right now I'm really having a good time with this phone. The only thing that is a downgrade from last year, the Realme GT7 Pro here, is that it doesn't have wireless charging. Last year it did, and you know me, I like me a good wireless charging. But 6,500 milliamp hour battery,
sweet,
120 watt charging. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
And the rest of the specs are, pretty much what you expect from flagship. Metal build. This display is 6,000 nit display, which is insane. Like peak, of course, right? But it's also a flat, but it's quad rounded. Like the actual viewing area is flat, but the edge of the glass is like 2.5D all the way around. Feels really nice in hand, especially when you're doing, the gestures. Like when you're doing this, like it's really feels so nice, because you can do it from the bottom too, because there's like a little rounded edge there.
Right.
And then metal frame, stereo speakers, ultrasonic. Also, all of these phones All of them, OnePlus 13, X8, and this again, we know this because they've told us. This is not me breaking any embargo because they told us the specs on the X8 and X8 Pro, but they all have ultrasonic fingerprint sensors now. So does the Realme.
Is it supposed to be better? Because
I don't know, but I'm just saying it's interesting that like there's definitely some parts. What you want
common parts,
like commonality here, some economies of scale going on in BBK land. Because the same 3x telephoto, the same fingerprint sensor, and the display is all different. This is a Samsung display. It's one of the best, one of the highest tech displays you can get, but it's only 1220p. It's not like a quad HD like the Find X series has, or like I presume I think the OnePlus 13 had a quad HD. That one's made by BOE. And again, we know all this because they launched the phone in China already. So
and they know, but still, I mean, it's for its performance. It's very, very well priced, very competitive.
What's the price in China for you, or in Hong Kong for you?
Oh well, this is not officially available in Hong Kong either. So
do you because I don't think they give us pricing for the global model. This is a global model. It has Google Play services and everything.
No idea.
Yeah, I think I heard rumors. The Chinese price translated was about $550 to $600 US, which is insane for what you're getting there.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can. I don't know if he ever. Oh, they did send me the press release, I think.
No, they sent me a lot of stuff, but they never give us pricing, especially for the global model, which is what we really need, right? But yeah, it's interesting.
Well, you can always just buy the China model and then stick the Google Play stuff into it.
Absolutely. Okay, so it's not that big of a deal.
It starts from 3,600 yuan. So that's CNY to USD, $500.
Yeah, that's what I thought. 550 is what I saw. Yeah. That's not bad at all. I mean, that's like
very competitive.
Pixel 8A pricing for the US. I mean, you get a full flagship. 8 Elite. The whole 9 yards.
Realme is the modern day
it's
old
the new
Xiaomi.
OnePlus. It's the new OnePlus, I think.
Well, okay, yeah, you can say that too.
Think early OnePlus,
New early
especially because
OnePlus,
they're in the BBK group. And OnePlus now, other than the R series, they're really kind of going up market with the Open, the 12, the 13.
I know the guys at Realme, they have to resist very hard to avoid saying flagship killer because they know that was like a OnePlus thing. But that's literally their strategy. We've had this discussion with them, and they're like, "Hey, Richard, what else can we say apart from flagship killer?" I'm like, I gave them some suggestion at CES this year, but then later on, this whole AI thing came out, so they just stuck with AI. So well, there's a lot of actually good AI features, and I mean, you know me, I'm not a big fan of AI on the absolute. I want it to be useful, and a lot of it right now, especially the Gen AI stuff, is kind of more fun. But the photo editing features on there, there is, I just tried them today. Actually, I removed the lens flare from a photo I took. And nice. I did it by simply circling the lens flare and say, remove. Yes.
And to my great surprise, you can't tell. It's like it didn't invent any, like what it invented is very small, but what it invented was exactly what you would think was there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, this is when I feel like Gen AI has done its job,
Right.
Or like when I asked Gen AI to, here's a review, 2,000 words, give me a good SEO punchy headline. And it gives me some options and I grab them and I tweak them. Because I never take the stuff directly. Or when you have to write a review and you have to have that one line summary.
Yeah.
Gen AI loves that stuff, it does a very good job with it.
Yeah.
So these are some of the applications for me for Gen AI.
Likewise.
But yeah, the Realme is, now that I've not just unboxed it and shown you quickly, like last week on the post, I brandished the phone before, but now I've actually used it. And, like last year, I thought the GT5 Pro last year was basically a baby OnePlus 12 because it had wireless charging even. Mm-hmm. And it had the same cameras except for the ultra wide, which just like this one is just an 8 megapixel basic ultra wide. But other than that, they were very much a match. This is a little different because it doesn't have that circular camera pod and it doesn't have wireless charging, but that's 6,500 milliamp hour. Look, I give you an example. Today, I had to run an errand out in the suburbs of Vancouver. So I took the train out there and took the train back. And so I'm on the train and I'm like listening to music and, I'm tethering the phone to my other phones because, I have a Canadian SIM and I have a US SIM and I can roam, but I don't want to roam too much because if you roam too much, you get in trouble. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm going to tether my US phones to my Canadian phone I put the SIM in here. I use that thing I was gone for 3 hours. I was on trains, walking, picking up, doing stuff in the mall, whatever, various reception quality. And not only did it tether flawlessly for the whole time with 2 or 3 other phones tethered to it, I lost like maybe 10, 15% of battery life in 3 hours. Like the battery life on this thing is, you really notice because I'm not playing games on it right now. Like I'm just, checking text messages and like looking quickly at social media, answering an email here and there, taking 1 or 2 photos, tethering. Like I'm not like, if I was playing games, I'd probably drain the battery pretty quickly. But right now it's pretty solid. I'm very impressed with it. So.
Well, I can't wait to try it because I do a lot of video editing on the phone these days.
You think you'll love it for that. And it's fast too. Like it feels so fluid. Yeah. Like I think that's coming from, this 8 Elite, obviously.
Right.
And of course, good software. Yes. This is Realme UI, which is very similar to Oxygen OS. So the other thing that we were talking about Huawei, and I kind of forgot, but Huawei's got a Mate 70 coming and it's actually coming very soon. So we don't know too much about it other than it's coming. There's leaks out there. It looks like it has a pretty crazy camera pod. At least that's what we're seeing from some of the leaks here.
Yeah, nothing new there, though.
Nothing too crazy. It looks more like a Mate 50, actually. It reminds me more of the Mate 50, right?
Yeah. Doesn't look all that exciting to me. Because, I have to give Huawei credit. Like, when it comes to something like the Mate XT, you start to forget about what processor they're using. Because
of course,
at that point, it doesn't matter anymore, even though you're paying so much. And that's
the thing that a lot of people don't understand. It's about the experience, right? Yes, thermals do matter. Yes, battery consumption does matter. And with a bigger nanometer chip, you're going to be less efficient. But ultimately, how is your experience? Are you feeling any lag? And I'm sorry, but my P40 Pro Plus still today on the latest software is fast. Like the user experience, it's just everything smooth. The apps start fast. You can put any APK on there. It's so I've got Instagram and stuff on there. Just no problem at all. It's happy.
I just wonder how many more phones Huawei can release given their stockpile of components at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I also don't want to dismiss the possibility that they're going to be able to make their own 4 nanometer chips at some point,
Well, the yield would be too low.
I know, but again, it's just a matter of time. Like you can't block things forever. Like, I think like if it's been invented by a human, it's going to get reinvented by a human. You know what I'm saying? Like from scratch, even like it's going to happen. And I'm sure they're putting a ton of resources into that. Like, so they have to, right? That's the name of the game.
Yeah.
We also spoke of Samsung earlier, and there's some interesting Samsung news this week. There's rumors of a Galaxy S25 Slim, and apparently the industrial design of that phone supposedly is going to kind of like give us a glimpse of what to expect with the S26 series and kind of try out that design direction. And also, and this is interesting to me, it is kind of, those rumors we've heard of Apple making a slim phone for the iPhone 17, right? Like I think maybe
iPhone Air.
I think Samsung's anticipating that if Apple's going to make a slim phone, they should make one. And actually, I think that's interesting.
Well, Samsung should just do it. Don't wait for Apple to.
No, I don't think they're waiting because it sounds like this would be a Q2 thing. So like it's becoming like they're probably going to launch the main S25 phones, right? And then like I think a few weeks or months later, we're gonna. And yeah, I know the iPhone's not coming out till September, so we know that. So
they should just do the slim version as the main phone.
I agree because it would really kind of put them on the map, right? It's like let's show what we can do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like Samsung's been very conservative. Like the Z Flip that you get, unless you import it from Korea, that new special edition, which is really thin and light and has a better camera. And, it's thicker than the OnePlus Open. It's thicker than my Pixel 9 Pro Fold. It's like they didn't really try hard. And I feel like I don't think the S25 is going to be very audacious. I think the S25 series in general, even the Ultra, is going to be very evolutionary, very like iPhone, very like we're just going to make the minimum we need to sell a lot of phones in those markets like the US where people don't care. And then that's why they're doing the Slim. And that's why they have this special edition that they did. That's why they have the W25s in China, which are essentially the special edition Z Fold 6 and the Z Flip 6, not special in any way. Just very gold and black and beautiful.
Yeah.
Are these phones popular in China, do you think, those W series?
Here's a bit of history about the W series in China.
That's what we want on the podcast.
The W series had always been like a luxury line for China.
Yeah.
Even before the real foldables came out, the W series existed as a bunch of flip phones.
That's right.
Yeah, but with a full-on touchscreen on both front and back. So even you flip it open,
a T9 numpad on the bottom.
Yeah,
right.
And obviously over time it evolved into the Chinese version, the local version of the Galaxy Z Fold or Flip. Yeah. So, but they still keep the W line going, obviously. But they just turn it into, they localize it, so to speak. They localize it and make it into something that looks very luxurious.
And it's still premium. It's still sold as a premium product, correct?
It is definitely, still a premium product, alongside the original Z Fold or Z Flip. So it's not like that's the W25 is a replacement for the other things.
Understood.
So it's just a special edition with gold accents.
It looks really black. Hot. Yeah, I love the bling on it.
And supposedly it comes with like some VIP service, so you get better taken care of by the customer service and things like that. And comes with a very nice premium packaging, so it's something that you can buy to other as a gift for other executives or VIPs, things like that.
Yeah.
The price, I mean, it doesn't cost that much extra, I think. It's a little more expensive than the normal editions.
We don't have the special edition Z Fold 6 here. We have the regular one, which is about, I don't know, I can't remember, $17.99, $18.99, so US. So this is a lot more, but you're getting the special edition. So you're getting a much thinner, lighter folding phone with a 200 megapixel main sensor instead of what we get on the regular.
Sorry, I forgot that it's based on the slim model. Yeah,
that's right. And then if you look at the Z Flip version, the W25 Flip, which is the flip phone, that's $1,000 in the US, I think, or $1,100, or actually no, it's $1,000. $1,000. So 400. This is 1,400. Is still quite a bit more, but it's bling. And if you want bling, nobody does bling better than China. Maybe UAE does bling, and Saudi Arabia does bling pretty good too.
Yeah.
But speaking of the Z Flip, by the way, another rumor is that I told you that we had a bunch of Samsung rumors. Another rumor is for a fan edition Z Flip, so a cheaper Z Flip for Western markets, presumably. But this actually makes sense to me, Richard. You know that Moto is quite successful with the Razr line here in North America, surprisingly. I mean, if in the universe of folding flip phones sold in North America, we're talking a very niche thing, because even the Galaxy is not super popular. But you see it more and more, and every now and then you see a Razr instead. And I think there is definitely a decent percentage chunk of the flip type folding phone market here. That's Moto. But Moto has two models. They have an affordable one that's $699, which, we're talking like almost like Blackview, Ulefone like territory here in terms of pricing. Like, think about it. But the quality is there. It's a Moto. It has like the Lenovo goodness.
Right.
And I think it would make perfect sense for Samsung to come along and have a $699 or $799 or some more affordable model that's slightly detuned. Like, just put a mid-range processor, make the cameras a little less fancy, I presume that they're going to go to a full screen display for the Z Flip 7 next year. So then they will probably they can keep that smaller-ish display that they have currently for the Fan Edition.
Well, I hope they don't downgrade the cameras any further.
Because, I'm thinking more like
they aren't that good.
I'm thinking more like ISP, not really like the hardware.
Okay, fair enough. But still,
Yeah,
not a fan.
It's not when
I tried it at the Samsung, one of the flagship stores in Seoul. That was like the day after the launch. I was like, oh,
it's not. It's not what people care about when they buy a Z Flip. Unfortunately,
Well, still, I mean, Samsung.
Frankly, I have the Xiaomi. Mix Flip here.
Oh, yes.
And the camera is Leica and it's really good. I also have the last year's Oppo Find N3 Flip, and it has 3 cameras and they're really great.
That's very good. Yeah.
Even the Razer is, in my opinion, not great, but slightly better than the Z Flip for photos.
Oh dear. Samsung has some catching up to do, man.
Well, to give Moto and Lenovo credit, they have put a lot of effort into their camera systems, even on their regular phones, like their bar phones this last year or two. Like, they're aware that we've been slamming them, and they, I wouldn't say that it's this is my evaluation. I would say, like, if like you put like a really good flagship up here and you put the Z Flip there, the Moto is like just slightly better. It's not like, it's not like the Xiaomi Mix Flip. It's not like the Oppo Find N3 Flip. Those are like really like the best camera on a flip phone today, in my opinion.
For sure.
So yeah. And then the last bit of news is we knew this was coming, because when I was at Qualcomm Summit 2 weeks ago, I actually played. Sasha of ASUS brought us a ROG Phone 9 retail unit. And it's funny because, Xiaomi's on stage and they're like, hey, we're going to be the first out the box with 8 Elite. And Sasha just shows up and says, here's the phone, guys. Have at it.
Yeah.
And so we all did, obviously. And I wrote a story for Tech Radar very quickly,
nice.
Hands on. But it was funny because, as soon as that happened, I was like, Red Magic. Red Magic always loves me, and they always send me all their phones. And like, I love that they have a built-in fan, because, when I review for hot hardware is very serious about running benchmarks. I personally could care less, but I will obviously follow their protocols, and I run the benchmarks, and I'm always impressed at what difference the fan makes built in. And now I know that you can mount a fan on the back of the ASUS, but having it built in is something. And, while the software on Red Magic's always been a bit iffy, and you kind of don't expect too many updates, the hardware, however, has been very impressive. So I'm waiting to see what happens this year. Last year's Red Magic 9 series, even the 9S later on in the year, when they, always upgrade the processor halfway through the year, was like a special edition, slightly higher clock rate, kind of like the Samsung 4 Galaxy Snapdragons,
Yeah.
The 9 series was the first Red Magic I tested where the camera was not a dog. Like, the camera was actually decent. I was like, oh my God, a gaming phone with a decent camera? Like, what is the world coming to? Now, I haven't played with the recent ROG phones. They haven't sent them to me. But the 9, I think they're going to send me. So I'll let you know what I think. But yeah.
I may or may not have one. But
I am not a huge fan of Red Magic per se, but I have to appreciate what they're doing. And so I just have to mention that, yes, there is a Red Magic 10 series coming in China, at least for now. November 13th is the launch, so keep an eye out. I think that means we're going to get global versions before the end of the year. And Richard, this is the exciting part. They always sell officially in the US.
Right.
And they're always extremely affordable. We're talking like $650, $700. And with a warranty and US bands.
Very good. So
if you're looking for the cheapest 8 Elite phone, right, in the US, soon I'm pretty sure it's going to be the Red Magic 10, at least the base model.
So you can't get the Realme officially in the US, right?
The Realme is not officially sold in the US, no. The OnePlus is really the only BBK Group brand we have in the US. And so, of course, there's a OnePlus 13 coming at some point, and we got the OnePlus Open, we got the 12 last year, we got the 12R, which was like much more affordable. That's basically
you get the Nord series as well.
We do not get the Nord. We have a North American Nord. We get very cheap Nords that are basically like Moto Gs. Like $200 budget phones. They're pretty good, but they didn't make one this year. So like they seem to have abandoned that North American Nord. I don't know. But we never got the real Nords, if that's what you're asking.
Okay.
No real Nords for us. No.
Yeah. I'm trying to find out if what it's called in the US, but I can't.
Well, so there's a CE for Europe, and ours is the N series. Nord N200, N20, N30, N for North America. So, it's so bizarre. They have all these weird Nords, right? But this year we didn't get an N, because here's the thing. What happened was OnePlus got in bed with T-Mobile for the OnePlus 6T. And that was the first like official partnership, like in the stores, big rah. And, it died off after the OnePlus 10, I want to say, because the 11 wasn't available to carriers. The 12 wasn't either. So then we also got the 10T that wasn't available to carriers, and we got the 12R that wasn't available to carriers. But right around that time is also when they stopped making the N series. Like we got N series 2023, but no N series in 2024.
Oh, wow.
So anyway,
lack of demand, maybe.
Well, yeah, who knows? We should wrap up, Richard. Yeah. Do you want to tell folks in more detail about where they can find you on the internet? Your handles, your channels, your publications, your freelance stuff, all of it.
Hi. So, yes, if you want to follow me, I am Richard Lai HK on Instagram. That's where I'm most active these days. So it's Lai's Lai HK, HK for Hong Kong. So Richard Lai HK. I'm also on Twitter. That's only Richard Lai, Richard Lai. And that's pretty much it. I am hoping to launch my Substack very soon. So by the time this episode goes out, hopefully my Substack will be ready, and you'll catch my announcement on my either Instagram or Twitter threads, etc., etc. And I am currently I've been freelancing for various sites and brands and products. I did a bit of translation work even for a London mobile analyst firm. And I'm helping out with a Kickstarter campaign of a new product that maybe Miriam, you'll be interested as well. I'll tell you offline.
Hit me up.
Yeah, so that's what's been keeping me busy, which is good. Busy is good. It's keeping me alive and kind of well fed. But yeah, I'm always up for doing more work. I may be checking out an AR conference in Hangzhou later this month. So that'll be something as well. And do some interviews and play with new toys. And I'm grateful that brands like Realme and maybe Asus, maybe Insta360, etc. These brands, I still get to play with their latest toys, and life is relatively good. Life is okay. So feel free to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and my Substack coming soon. So any support will be much appreciated.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. I will subscribe. And folks, please hire Richard whether you work in publishing or work in consulting and you need his advice. please hire him. He is one of the best. And you know where to find me, folks. I'm at Tankerl. That's TNKGRL on all the socials. Still on Twitter, but I'm also on Threads where I'm pretty active. Instagram. Of course, there is Blue Sky and Mastodon, Facebook, all that. So please chat with me and Richard about this show. And if you have any questions or comments to make, the podcast lives at mobiletechpodcast.com. We're also on all the major platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, everywhere. So please subscribe, tell your friends, all that good stuff. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. You can see some of the old podcasts from a decade ago if you go there. But also more recently, I've got a unboxing video coming up of this Realme phone. Basically free video content. You know how YouTube works. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell, comment, etc. And if you want to help me out, there's a Patreon, patreon.com/Tankerl. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL, just like my Twitter handle, social media handle. So if you want to help me out, it's $5 a month to get a video version of every episode every week in advance, a day or so in advance. And you get to also get some outtakes and bloopers. And if I go too long, you get extra content. So if you want to get it, it's $5 a month. It's probably worth your while. There's other tiers too if you want to spend more or less. But if you want to support me, I'd appreciate it. So consider that, patreon.com/TNKGRL. And if you're don't want to use Patreon, there's a way to give a donation through PayPal in the show notes. Just click on the button there and you can buy me a coffee or something. So yeah, and finally, I want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. So as you know, I'm constantly reviewing multiple phones, and while that's fun, it also means I'm constantly spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. That's where Mint Mobile comes in, and that's who I'm partnering with for today's podcast. If you also want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. As tech-savvy early adopters, you've probably heard of Mint Mobile before, but let me quickly tell you how awesome their service is. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around and waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current device and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM free of charge. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, lightning fast 5G, and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link mintmobile.com/mobiletech to get premium wireless starting for $15 a month. That's mintmobile.com/mobiletech. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And thanks, Richard, for being my guest for episode 400.
400!
Oh my God, I know.
Well done. Congratulations. What a milestone.
Thank you so much.
Really.
Well,
and it's such an honor. Such an honor to have me.
Thanks for playing along. You have been able to be on the 100th episode every time, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for that. Thank you, Richard.
No, thank you, Miriam. Seriously, wow. You and I go way back, and it means a lot, really, really. And
to me as well. Yeah, absolutely.
And the fact that we still get to do what we love doing for such a long time. Yeah, life is good. Life is good. No matter what happens outside with...
I know. Yeah. All right, folks. So I'll have Richard on again, hopefully maybe before the 100th, but definitely on the 100th. And then stay tuned. We'll have another show next week. So until then, cheers, everybody.
Bye.